everyone, my name is Gabby and today I'm going to be bringing you my first ever video related to J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. I am so excited to dive in and finally discuss these books with all of you after having read them 2 times through already. So the first time that I read the Harry Potter series was in the summer of 2016 and I had the best time reading those books, but I never really talked about them on my channel much other than when I was mentioning reading them during a booktube-a-thon. But from that point on, I just pretty much stopped talking about them, and so I never really got to dive into my thoughts on the series and what I thought about certain characters. And so this summer I decided to reread the series again, and this time I enjoyed myself a lot more. And so I feel like I'm finally qualified to discuss the series, and it's finally time for me to discuss the series with all of you. So what I put together is essentially a Harry Potter / Fantastic Beasts get to know me video where I have a whole bunch of different questions that I've compiled that relate to me and my opinions on the Harry Potter series. So essentially this is like me doing like one big discussion of the Harry Potter world rather than doing like 7 individual book reviews where I talk about Harry Potter facts and opinions. And you also get to find out sort of where I belong within the wizarding world as well, which you'll understand a little bit as I get into this video. I don't know if anyone has ever done a video like this before, but this is something that I've created entirely on my own. If there are similar videos and you want to link them down below, I would love to check those out. But without further ado, I'm going to just dive right into this video. Okay, so starting out with some of the identifiers. First things first, my Hogwarts house is Hufflepuff. I'm wearing a Hufflepuff lanyard if you cannot tell. I took the sorting test for the first time when I was reading Sorcerer's Stone, and when I got to the point where they did the sorting at Hogwarts, I put my bookmark inside of Sorcerer's Stone, I opened up Pottermore, and I took the sorting test and I got sorted into Hufflepuff. And originally I thought I was going to be in Ravenclaw, but now that I am where I am now, having graduated high school, going to be going off to college in a few days, I definitely sincerely believe I am a Hufflepuff, although I did take the sorting quiz a second time and get sorted into Ravenclaw. So moving into my hybrid house, I would definitely say that I am a Huffleclaw. I definitely think I have Ravenclaw qualities, and I definitely believe that if I took the sorting test at 11 years old, when you're supposed to get sorted, I would have definitely been in Ravenclaw. But I think my values have changed a lot since I was little. I feel like I no longer value myself based on the letter grades that I get, and I instead value myself based on the way that I treat other people, and I just feel like a lot more of the Hufflepuff qualities apply to me more so than the Ravenclaw qualities. And I'm really glad to see that change in myself, because as much as I really, really love Ravenclaw and want to see myself as a Ravenclaw, I am 100% a Hufflepuff with Ravenclaw characteristics, because I could never be a Gryffindor or a Slytherin. Oh my goodness, I hit my wand against the bookshelf. Whoops! But yes, I could never be a Gryffindor or a Slytherin, so I am definitely 110% a Hufflepuff, but if we're talking hybrid houses, I am a Huffleclaw. Moving on to my Ilvermorny house, I was sorted into Thunderbird, and I took this quiz twice as well. I have 2 different accounts on Pottermore, so I decided I might as well take all the quizzes twice, see how accurate they are, and I was sorted into Thunderbird, which I felt like was weird because I thought I was gonna get sorted into Pukwudgie if we're trying to like match up the Ilvermorny houses with the Hogwarts houses. But although there is no like direct match between them, the Ilvermorny houses were inspired off of the Hogwarts houses, and there was a whole really cool story that was published around the time that Ilvermorny first started being discussed, and I recently read that and thought it was really interesting. And so if you want to read that, I'll have it linked down below. But I did also find this website that I'm going to link down below that talks about what your house combination means, so the combination of your Hogwarts house and your Ilvermorny house, and what it says about you. And so I'm going to read mine, which is Hufflepuff Thunderbird. And it says, if you're a Hufflepuff Thunderbird, you're a person who comes off as more ambitious than other Hufflepuffs. You're not necessarily a cutthroat person, but you don't have much of a problem bending the rules of fairness and justice to get the things you want. You have a lot of dreams and want to fulfill them at some point, and you know that there's a better future out there if you can just reach it. If you're a Hufflepuff Thunderbird, you might be a person that has a hard time saying no because of how kind-hearted you are. That being said, you also have an independent streak a mile wide. You need to feel like you're in control and not like people are pulling you in every direction. You expect a lot of yourself, but you also want freedom from those expectations. And I feel like that's relatively accurate. So Thunderbird, for those of you who don't know, is said to call adventurers. It is meant to symbolize the soul. So I don't know how accurate I feel like Thunderbird is for for me, but I took it twice. I got Thunderbird twice, and that's also the Ilvermorny house that J.K. Rowling is in, so I'm not complaining. Moving on to my Patronus, I am going to say that, like all the other tests, I took this one twice. The first time that I took it, I got a badger. The second time that I took it, I got a piebald mare, but I identify more so with the piebald mare. The badger feels too on brand because I'm in Hufflepuff, and to have a badger be my Patronus, like, it just feels like too extreme Hufflepuff. But I would say that either of those are my Patronus. If I had to choose one of my own, I would maybe want it to be an otter, but I don't know if that would necessarily reflect like my personality. I just think otters are really, really cute. And moving on to my last Harry Potter identifier, which is my wand type. So I do not have my own wand. This one that I'm holding is Newt's. If you cannot tell, I love Newt's wand a lot as a Hufflepuff. But my wand type, as I was sorted on Pottermore, is a chestnut wood, a unicorn hair core, 12 1/4 inches, and has a hard flexibility. And I feel like when I read about some of the descriptions for that and what it meant, it felt relatively accurate to me. And the next time that I go to Universal, I definitely want to get my own wand. Although I was looking at a picture that I took of all of the different wand woods and what it's supposed to mean, and I didn't see a chestnut wood on the list of them. So I don't know if they have a chestnut wood. They probably do, but there's that handy information for all of you to know. So now moving on to some of my Harry Potter favorites. So starting with my favorite book, it's hard to pick just one, but I have to say overall the one that I enjoyed reading the most was probably Deathly Hallows, just because it's so intense and action-packed, and it's this conclusion of like 6 other previous books, and so there's so much foreshadowing and build-up that's done. That book is also incredibly emotional because characters are dying left and right. I feel like J.K. Rowling is probably the most savage author I've ever read from, and I've yet to read a YA author that just senselessly murders their characters the way that J.K. Rowling does. Seriously, like, everyone dies in Harry Potter. It's ridiculous. But Deathly Hallows was really, really beautiful, and I think there's so much like foreshadowing and like crazy things going on that it's fun to get to reread a second time, because once you know what all those things mean, it makes it a little bit more fun to notice where the foreshadowing is happening and notice where the story is going and kind of prepare yourself for some of those big emotional moments. And like the Battle of Hogwarts is just freaking epic. Like, there's so many really, really, really good moments in that book that it's definitely a favorite for me. But runner-ups would maybe be Half-Blood Prince. I think it's interesting to see Voldemort's backstory. I think you get to find out a lot of stuff about Snape. It's interesting. Obviously that stuff gets clarified in Deathly Hallows, and we can talk more about Snape in a little bit. But then besides that, I definitely like Prisoner of Azkaban, because you get introduced to Sirius, and he's just such a wonderful character, and there's lots of people that love Prisoner of Azkaban, so that's an obvious favorite of mine as well. Then moving on to my least favorite book, which may come as a surprise to some of you because I don't know how common this opinion is, but I actually think that Order of the Phoenix is my least favorite Harry Potter book. And I remember that it was the point at my first time reading the series where I started to just get really annoyed with a lot of characters, and I think it's for a large part because you're having to deal with Umbridge throughout all of that book, and she's just the worst, and I couldn't stand reading from her and having her exist as a character that it made reading that book unbearable. I'm also annoyed at Harry because he keeps standing up to her, and like, while I respect that, I also just get so annoyed because I'm like, Harry, you're gonna end up in detention, and Harry, like, why? Like, just, can you not? It just, like, part of me is just like, shut your mouth, Harry! And then he can't learn occlumency, and it's the reason why Sirius dies if he had just learned occlumency. But then I'm also thinking, like, could he have learned occlumency because he's a Horcrux? And like, can you just like, can occlumency work if you're a Horcrux? But like, I don't think any other human would have been a Horcrux, so like they couldn't know. I don't know, that's like a completely different side tangent, but I just thought there was like so many things going on in Order of the Phoenix that made me so annoyed that I just couldn't with that book. And it's not to say that I don't like it, it's just to say that it probably was the one that was the least favorite for me to read, although there's lots of really good serious moments in that book, and there are lots of good moments. But I just think that honestly, there are a lot of more interesting movie moments for me in the Order of the Phoenix movie than there is so in the book, because some of my favorite movie moments actually don't even come from the books and they come from Order of the Phoenix, like that conversation with Harry and Sirius where they're looking at the tapestry of the Black family. The moment where Harry's like, sorry professor, I must not tell lies with the centaurs. Such a good moment. But if I had to pick a follow-up to that, it would probably be Goblet of Fire. So now moving on to, oh my goodness, I need to stop hitting my wand against things. Moving on to my favorite Harry Potter movie, which has to probably be Deathly Hallows Part 2. Again, it's a conclusion. It's the same reasons why I like the entire Deathly Hallows as a book. I just think that's like a really, really beautiful conclusion. I love watching the Battle of Hogwarts. It's just so beautiful. And you have the Snape moments as well that are really beautifully done. Just so many good things that happen in that movie. Again, Prisoner of Azkaban, I really love because you get to see Sirius, and it's just an iconic movie that I feel like lots of people really, really love. So those two are probably my favorites. Moving on to my least favorite movie, which probably doesn't come as a shocker to most of you because this is where I'm taking like the general consensus route and saying Goblet of Fire, because that movie just, I feel like I don't even need to say anymore. Like Quidditch World Cup, the Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? He said calmly. There's spew that's left out. Like there's just lots of things that get hacked out. And it just feels like character development starts to just fall apart, and that movie's just like a mess. Also, Robert Pattinson is Cedric Diggory. Like, I can't get over it. Now moving on to some of my favorite characters and doing a little bit of a breakdown of that because it'd be hard to just pick one favorite character, so sort of doing subsections of that. So starting with my favorite Maurader, which has to be, no surprise, Sirius Black. I have Sirius's wand. It's in the box. I'm not gonna take it out, but I love Sirius and I've grown to love him so much over my 2 times reading this series. I just think that Sirius, because he is the representation of everything that Harry has been searching for throughout his entire childhood, that he just means the world to me, and it just makes me so annoyed because I don't know how often people think about this, but he has such limited page and screen time within this series because for most of Prisoner of Azkaban, we think that he's a murderer. Then in Goblet of Fire, we really don't get to see that much of him because we have the Triwizard Tournament going on and like a whole bunch of other things happening. And then in Order of the Phoenix, we do get some serious moments, but then he dies. So it's like one of the best characters has so little time, but yet I still fell in love with him so quickly. And I think a large part of the reason why I love him is just because Gary Oldman did a phenomenal job bringing him to screen. And the moments that Harry and Sirius have together on screen in the movies are so beautiful and some of my favorite moments in the film, but their moments in the book are just as beautiful as well, that he is easily my favorite Maurader. Moving on to my favorite Gryffindor at Hogwarts, it's time for some Neville Longbottom appreciation. I love me some Neville. I feel like people don't appreciate Neville Longbottom, but I just love him, I think, a large part because of his character growth, because he starts out in Sorcerer's Stone very clumsy, awkward, forgets things, is a bit of a mess, kind of anxious, but you do see some of those traits that you see later amplified in Deathly Hallows, like when he gets house points at the end of the year for standing up to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. So you see those traits are there, but I think for the most part when you see Neville, he's a little bit more clumsy and awkward and a bit of a mess. And then suddenly you get to Deathly Hallows and it's like Neville Longbottom's a badass. He's standing up to the Carrow siblings. He is killing Horcrux. He's pulling the sword of Godric Gryffindor out of the sorting hat. He's standing up to Voldemort. Like, Neville Longbottom just freaking like is slaying. He found the room of requirement. He was able to create the passageway from the room of requirement to Hogshead. Oh my goodness. we stand that character growth. It's just amazing. And he just becomes so brave and so strong. And I feel like you really get to see Neville in his superior form, and I just love it. But if we had to pick runner-ups, it would definitely be Fred and George, because they're just hilarious and so wonderful and such like a spot of levity in this very, very sad and dark series, and them getting ripped apart makes me so sad. Especially knowing that like George can never cast Patronus ever again since Fred died, but it hurts. But then if we're picking up a runner-up to that, it would obviously be Hermione, because like who doesn't love Hermione? Moving on to my favorite antagonist slash villain. So I'm going more the antagonist route because I want to talk about Draco Malfoy and how much I love Draco, because here's the thing. Draco sucks. I feel like I hated him much more the second time around than I did the first. But then Half-Blood Prince happens, and this is one of the reasons why I like Half-Blood Prince, because it's a moment where you kind of start to feel bad for Draco, because he's pretty much told, like, hey you, kid, kill Dumbledore, and if you don't, I'm gonna kill you and your whole family. And so, obviously, lots of stress and anxiety, right? I think just watching him stumble and fall and just like be a mess when he's this character that seems like really obnoxious and stuck up, that suddenly he gets like struck down a peg, and I feel like you see some sort of redemption for him, or at least a different side from him that you didn't see before, that I found very interesting and very compelling. Also, I love Tom Felton. He just does such a wonderful job of bringing Draco Malfoy to the screen that it just makes me like fall in love with him so much more as a character, because I genuinely believe that he has like heart and compassion, and that he doesn't believe the things that he was raised to believe. That sounds like a controversial opinion, but I feel like he was taught to believe those things by his family, and so he believed them and touted them because I'm a Malfoy, and he wants to sort of make himself look better because obviously he's very insecure, especially with Harry getting all of this attention, and it makes me feel a little bit bad for him, you know. And I think by the time we get to like 19 years later, we sort of see that change, and that he doesn't want to be the person that his parents raised him to be, and wants to sort of make that change. So I like seeing that redemption arc for Draco, and so this is kind of like a little Draco Malfoy appreciation moment. Moving on to some of the teachers, we have to talk about my favorite Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, which is undoubtedly Professor Lupin. Oh my goodness. We love the Marauders, and I think Lupin is a really, really great character because he's by far like just the most superior Defense Against the Dark Art teacher in terms of the fact that he's actually a really good teacher and knows what he's doing and just teaches superior lessons, like that Bogart lesson. Oh my goodness, is that iconic to the point where Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them felt that they needed to steal it again because it was such a high quality lesson, even though technically that means that Dumbledore did it first, but like, but I just love Lupin. I think he's such a great teacher, and I love his character and the way that he's represented in Prisoner of Azkaban, and that's also one of the reasons why I really love that story a lot. Also the introduction of the Marauders, like high quality stuff. But a follow up to that would probably be Lockhart, which sounds ridiculous, but like, oh my goodness, Lockhart is hilarious. It is one of the reasons why I love Chamber of Secrets as much as he's the worst. Like Kenneth Branagh as Professor Lockhart, like, oh my goodness, it can't get any better than that. It just can't. So then moving on to like my favorite long-standing professor, this probably has to go to, which may be a little bit of a surprise, Professor McGonagall. I really like McGonagall because she genuinely seems like a good teacher. Like, she's good at teaching, she cares about her students, and she just has some really freaking good moments in the books and in the movies. There's moments where she's definitely like a little bit of levity, which is something I feel like you wouldn't really expect from her. You like have the moment in the movies when her and Ron dance together, which is like great. You have the moment in Deathly Hallows Part 2 when she moves all of those stone statues and is like, I always wanted to do that. That was like really cute. Her battle with Snape, and then her moments with Harry where Umbridge is in charge and like Harry stands up to Umbridge and she's like, good boy, have a biscuit. It's just like so great. But I genuinely feel like all of those like funny, more levity, lighthearted moments aside, she's genuinely a good teacher, and I feel like someone where like if you were struggling, she would be willing to help you and like want you to improve and get better, and I just respect that so much because it's nice to have a representation of like some really good teacher adult figures in the series. So I love her. Hagrid is a close second, even though Hagrid's probably like a horrible teacher. He's just such a great character and just makes me so happy because he's genuinely just such a good guy, and he should not have gotten framed for opening the Chamber of Secrets. Still makes me so mad because he shouldn't have been expelled, but like, who doesn't love Hagrid? He's just such a great character. Okay, moving on to my favorite class at Hogwarts, which probably has to be Charms. I just feel like it's probably the most useful to know how to do different spells, you know? I like don't think I'd be a fan of potions because I'm not much of a science person. I would maybe enjoy Transfiguration. I feel like that would be interesting, and some of those spells and things that you learn could be helpful, and I feel like Charms and Transfiguration kind of go hand in hand a little bit, so I I would say those two classes are probably my favorite, or like history of magic or like muggle studies, things like that are more like memorization type stuff, because I'm much better at like memorizing things than I am at like application. So moving on to favorite wizarding food. This is basically an excuse for me to talk about how good frozen butterbeer is and how good pumpkin pasties are. I tried a pumpkin pasty at Universal and it was so good. It was like, I want this for Thanksgiving every freaking year. I need to make pumpkin pasties for myself because they are so good. Like, I am genuinely tempted, if you guys want to see it, when I come home for Thanksgiving, to make pumpkin pasties, because I really want to do that now. So pumpkin pasties and frozen butterbeer, good stuff. So this is a really random category that I came up with, but I wanted to talk about it, and I think I specifically made up this category to talk about this specific moment because I love it so much, which is favorite best cringe movie moment. So the movies have lots of ridiculous cringe moments that just are so talked about within this fandom because of how ridiculous they are, that it's like, how could anybody have made that choice and let that stay in the film? And so the number one moment for me that I absolutely have to talk about is the Draco Voldemort hug. It's so awkward but so great because it's like so un-Voldemort-like. Like, he would never, ever hug anyone. It's so just uncomfortable. It hurts my soul, but at the same time, it's like so great because I find myself like laughing at it. And the thing that makes me the most mad about that moment is that they did like how many takes of that scene, of that particular moment, and they only hugged once. And that's the take that they use in the movie. Like, that's just insane to me that there's all these different takes that are probably good and probably useful that don't have that really awkward hug in it, but they're like, yeah, let's use the awkward hug. Like, that looks great. I don't know. I like love it. I personally think it's so ridiculous that it almost just like works in a way, but like, what? Two more left. The next question that I have here is my favorite Fantastic Beast. So this is sort of in honor of the Fantastic Beast franchise because I sort of wanted to incorporate that series in as well, to sort of just talk about the entire Wizarding world rather than just specifically Harry Potter. So this is hard, but I like Nifflers. Nifflers are cute. I also love Demiguises, like the way that they appear and disappear. I just think they're really cool. And Bowtruckles are really cute. Those are like a top 3 for me. I still need to read Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I have that really gorgeous edition that my mom got me for Christmas. It's like the red cover. It's like buried under a whole bunch of books right now, so there's no way that I'm gonna go and grab it and like completely destroy my Harry Potter shelves. But I need to look through that, and I'm tempted to do that now because it's just so pretty from like what I just like casually flipped through that I want to get to read it more in depth very soon. But I think those are a top 3 for me, and I think the first Fantastic Beasts film did a really good job of showing off those creatures and giving us a little bit more of an insight into some of the creatures within the Wizarding world, and I'm excited to see more in future films, hopefully. And my last question, gonna end on a note in which everyone is gonna be super annoyed with me, in which I talk about an unpopular Harry Potter opinion. And so this is basically where we're gonna discuss Professor Snape, because I don't know how to feel about Snape and I need to scream about it for like a few seconds, please, because he's genuinely, I think, one of the most interesting literary characters, because it's impossible to form any cohesive opinion on him unless you have, which like good for you if you have, but I have not, because I want to not like him because he is abusive and the things that he does to Harry and especially Neville. Like, I can understand him maybe not liking Harry and having some problems with Harry because Harry sometimes does talk out of turn and sometimes does overstep a little bit and snoops around and does things that he shouldn't, but Neville does not deserve any of the shit that he gets from Snape at all. Like, sure, he's not the best student, but that means that you're supposed to help him rather than ridicule him, because you're only gonna make it worse for him, and he's not gonna perform any better with you ridiculing him. Like, come on, Snape. Like, this isn't hard. This is like Teacher 101, man. That annoys the hell out of me, and it makes him such a horrible character because he is so mean and abusive. But then you find out everything that you find out in Deathly Hallows, and it's like, how do you reconcile these two things in your brain? Because it suddenly changes the whole way that you look at him, because it's like he's had to play both sides for such a long time. And he loved Lily, and then Lily dies at his hand, so he's feeling that guilt and that shame for his entire life, and he has to look at her son for all these years and look into her eyes. And then the last thing that Snape asks is for Harry to look at him so we can see Lily's eyes one more time before he dies. Like, holy shit, like, that's such a beautiful moment. And like everything with him and Dumbledore and all the moments that you see in the pensive, just like, it makes me not hate him. Like, I don't hate him the way that other people do. And I feel like I could argue on his behalf that like he's just gone through a lot and just doesn't handle things very well. I don't hate him, I feel bad for him. And I feel like that's a bit of an unpopular opinion because most people hate Snape and are like, whatever it is that we find out in Deathly Hallows does not redeem him in any way, shape, or form because he's still abusive and manipulative and blah, 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 blah. But I feel like it provides context and understanding as for why he is the way he is. I can't reconcile the two. Like, I can't understand how someone who could have that love for somebody else could also be so mean and abusive and manipulative. Like, it bothers me to no end. But I truly don't think that Snape is as horrible as a lot of people want to make him out to be, although I don't think that some of his behavior is okay. Does that make any sense at all? I don't know. You can all bash and hate on me in the comments, but like, he's an interesting and compelling character to me. And so I wanted to sort of put that opinion out there, is to say that like, people are complex, and I think J.K. Rowling does a really good job of representing that in Snape's character. Okay, so that's about it for today's video. I feel like you guys know a lot more about me and my opinions on the Harry Potter series. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time in a new one. Goodbye! I'm trying to find inspiration.